We're here with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and my thoughts on the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Star Wars Battlefront 2. This game has been embroiled in controversies, and we'll get to that, believe me, because it's bad. I think the majority of consumers and gamers have been in the right. I can confirm most of your suspicions in my own way, and I'll get to that. But for the folks who maybe still want to be informed of the rest of the game, let me start with what exactly you get and some actual good things with the game. I usually, in these videos, try to balance with good and bad and good again, but here I have to kind of lay it out differently and just start with the all good, because first things first, Battlefront 2 comes with a single-player campaign. It was such a missing thing the first time around, and they mostly make up for it. You have big, beautiful Star Wars cutscenes, huge moments, characters, and battles revolving around Iden Versio. She's a member of this elite Inferno squadron of troopers who are working for the Empire, and you join up with them right around the end of Return of the Jedi. It starts off very different and interesting with like a really nice perspective shift to the Empire, but then things go really predictable and lots of moments feel like a greatest hits collection of kind of just playing as different famous Star Wars characters, when I really just kind of wanted to spend more time figuring out Iden Versio's story. As disappointing as some of it may be, it's honestly fun though. The game does a really good job of showing what characters are up to immediately after Return of the Jedi, keeping within the boundaries of the newer Aftermath novels, but still kind of carving their own path and filling in some blanks, and, you know, just being respectful of the material. Again, it's just not much, though, besides that. From a story perspective, it's not awful or anything, it's just predictable, and we've seen it all before. But the gameplay scenarios and action moments and shootouts are satisfying and fun. Not terribly difficult or complicated, but just a good theme park experience, you know? It looks great, and it just plays fun. Unfortunately, you're done in 4 or 5 hours, and the story isn't even over. It's not even wrapped up. It's just going to be continued in expansions later on, which thankfully are going to be free updates according to EA, which is a nice nod considering, well, everything else we gotta talk about. Now, the campaign ain't much, but it's a good way of ushering you through different character types and classes and vehicles, and especially the aerial battles. This is one of the biggest improvements overall from the last Battlefront. You can tell a different team got their hands on this one alone, because it's pretty exciting stuff. Different fighters control differently with different abilities, but it's still easy to maneuver and do cool shit while blasting other ships down at the same time. You guys probably know, I'm a big Star Wars fan. The campaign is far from perfect, but I think it's enjoyable as hell for fans. There's a lot of love and care put into this mode, even though it's short. Also, I want to acknowledge that I've seen lots of reviewers talk about the game having lots of glitches and bugs, but after hours and hours of playing, I've only encountered really one consistently where I clip through certain maps in multiplayer when I use the jetpack. Otherwise, it's a good-looking game. Most of the gameplay I recorded here is running on Xbox One X, and the Frostbite engine is working hard here, coupled just with the fact that all this Star Wars stuff is just meticulously and lovingly recreated. But with that, we need to dive into multiplayer, okay? Let's go. Again, before I get to the bad stuff, I do want to say that I think this is a big improvement over the last Battlefront game, which lacked content, and while exciting and good-looking, it didn't really provide much in terms of long-term thrills or engagement, at least for like me and my friends playing. But Battlefront 2 comes much closer to feeling like an actual Battlefront game. The map variety, changing time periods, class and character types, and all these different vehicle types get really closer to the glory days of the old Battlefront games. It can still feel incredibly simple at times. It's absolutely way more of a casual-leaning shooter, but you can still have some really good fun with it, from the big old galactic assault mode with massive battles to, you know, more focused objective and deathmatch modes and heroes and villains mode. You also have complete matchmaking if you just want to do aerial battles as well. And you get a decent arcade mode this time around with a lot of options and a good amount of variety and progression within it, and DICE plans to add more to that over time as well. The tweaks to criticisms from the previous game feel really good. Like, you actually have to earn your way to playing as a hero character or flying a new ship, as you don't pick up tokens in game. You actually rack up these battle points during a round and spend them on stuff when you spawn. The overall pace is just faster, and like I mentioned earlier, the maps are far better this time around. It makes a hell of a difference. As well as the individual abilities each hero and class gets. They just feel more fun. It's all simple but satisfying Star Wars shooting action. But that's kind of where it ends. It all sounds great because it fixed the problem the last Battlefront had and seems to be finding its way. But then it doesn't. I kept the previous section simple because there's one big thing to talk about, and that's how microtransactions and loot boxes have been handled. I have a high breaking point with this stuff, but I have to acknowledge it here. First and foremost, the game is very much pay to win. You can buy loot boxes with in-game currency or real money to unlock these cards that you can use to boost health, improve firepower, and a host of other things, giving you an actual leg up on another player. There are certain caps in place to help, but it doesn't really matter. Shooting a dude might take longer to kill him because he has a star card equipped to give him 10% more health, and he may have gotten that from a loot box he paid real money for. And that is not good. This messes up what could have been an otherwise balanced and pretty simple multiplayer, and it sets a dangerous precedent for the industry going forward. EA has been listening and making some alterations, like lowering the amount of currency it takes to unlock special hero characters, which was pretty egregious and ridiculous, and it was a huge offense that was quickly changed in favor of players. But it still just doesn't help the fact that most of the core game is designed around loot boxes and microtransactions, and it just doesn't feel good. It especially doesn't feel good because it ties directly into progression. You probably know that, like with every Before You Buy, I really like to break down the progression systems because I find them fun, fascinating, and some of the best ways to kind of drive you towards continually having fun. It's always good to have something to level up and something to work towards. And here, you can level up with experience, but it doesn't do much than raise your arbitrary level number. Main progression and character upgrading and customizing is based on these cards that you get from loot boxes. Get stuff from these, equip them to your character, like your sniper or heavy gunner or whatever, just to make them better in certain categories. The game is designed with the expectation that I like earning and opening loot crates to get better stuff, and that's just a bad assumption because I don't, especially not for elements that give me an advantage in gameplay. You can spend no real money at all and just earn loot boxes through the game, but number one, it's just not a fun form of progression anyway, and number two, it takes drastically longer. Even if the game tries to make good by giving you generous amounts of crates and daily rewards and stuff, I'm just not into it. It's just not fun. Grinding is one thing, but grinding for loot boxes is a whole other story. They're trying, but the game's core design revolves around the microtransaction models. And even as a huge fan of Star Wars that can forgive a lot of stuff, this really just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So you as a player, you can not spend a dime in the game, you can maybe not even buy the game, and you can voice your opinions. This issue has kind of brought a lot of players together, and it seems like EA is actually catching wind of it. Hopefully it does spark some change. I think, unfortunately, this lovingly crafted, improved Battlefront game with a bad business model may just be the one to fall on the sword and hopefully change the game industry for the better. I just wish it didn't have to be a Star Wars game. But you know how Before You Buy works. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion thrown in, and now I definitely want to hear yours, especially because right now there's a lot of controversy around this game. But, you know, we'll see how it goes a few months from now. They could update and change a lot of things. They can't change all the bad things, but this could be a better game down the line. I really don't know for sure, so I can't recommend you go out and get it right now, but I do want to know what you're thinking. I know the comments are going to be a shit show, but let's try and be civil. And we're all on the same side here. We want to enjoy this game, but it seems like a lot of things are trying to take our money, and we just can't. But I want to know what you're thinking. Maybe you don't agree with me. Maybe you do agree with me. Let's talk about this stuff. If you have any questions about Battlefront, try and hit me in the comments. I'll be there as much as possible. But if you got anything else for me, hit me up as always on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino as well. But you guys know the deal. Coming around here and clicking the like button does help us out. It lets us do more of these videos. And if you're new, subscribing is a good idea because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.